Hello.
Hello, is this Judy Norton?
It is.
Hello, Judy. This is Dustin Wilmus from KMSU Radio. How are you doing?
I'm fine. How are you doing?
I am excellent. I am here with my co-host, Ton.
Hey there, Judy. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks.
Good. That's great.
Well, we have some questions we wanted to ask you.
Sounds good.
Okay, we'll start off.
Come up with some answers for you.
Well, yeah, anything you want to say will be good. If you want to make up some
Okay.
stuff, that's fine too.
Hey, sounds good.
Well, first of all, how did you get started in show business?
Well, I was, about 6 or 7, and initially started off with dance classes and, some children's theater classes, and it kind of developed from there. My parents got me an agent, and I started auditioning for film and television, and, I got lucky. And then, of course, the Waltons was sort of my big breakout role, and here we are.
Yeah, the Waltons, that went on for quite a while and seemed to be kind of a major staple for a lot of people growing up. I guess, how was that in your experience?
It was a wonderful experience. It's a show that we were all very proud of, what it had to say, what it represented, the fact that, we just celebrated the 40th anniversary of the beginning of the show, and, people, new generations are finding the show as it continues in reruns, and, it's quite something to find yourself a part of, American history and an iconic television show that obviously has stood the test of time. And, you don't, when you go into something like that, there's no way to conceive of the size and scope that it's going to have. So I think we all feel very fortunate, not just to have that legacy, but also the lifelong friendships that we developed because of that. It's my second family,
Yeah, for sure. Now, talk a bit about kind of what you did kind of after the Waltons, and whether, did that typecast you at all, or what were the sort of things that you were trying to get into after that?
Well, definitely coming off a show where you have such a recognizable character, it's a double-edged sword, because, that launches you into prominence in your field, but it also, does make you identifiable. So I found that it was much more difficult initially to do film and television roles because, people saw me as Mary Ellen Walton. But I did find that it opened a lot of other doors because in theater, that's an asset, to have somebody in a show, that people will come to see because they know them. So I just kind of found that I went back to theater and started, particularly I'd always wanted to do musical theater, so I went and started doing a lot of musical theater. And, sometimes when one door closes, you have to find other ways, to move forward. And so it sort of prompted me to move into other areas like more singing, and I started moving into writing and directing, initially for theater, and now most recently I've been moving into that area as far as film and television as well. I have my first film that I wrote, Finding Harmony, which is was produced this past summer and should be released sometime in the new year. And I've just been working on a new television series up in Canada that I've been writing and directing for, and also doing a recurring character in that show. So, so those avenues, the writing and directing, may not have come about had just the acting work continued to be laid out there for me.
Right. You're saying you're doing all this stuff in theater and in television. Is there one that you prefer, or are they both kind of close to your heart, or what are your thoughts on that?
I really enjoy them both, and they're different sorts of challenges to each of them. And the great thing about the stage is the energy you get from working in front of a live audience. It's more interactive in that sense. You feel more of the direct connection of the response to what you're creating at that moment. You know immediately if it's working or not working. One of the ongoing projects that has been a lot of fun for me is a little bit different. Is I do a lot of work with the Golden Age theater here in Hollywood, and that's kind of unique. It sort of harkens back to a little of what the Waltons did, where we sat around the radio and we listened to radio shows, and what the Golden Age theater does is that they take the fiction stories from the pulp fiction age, particularly the stories of L. Ron Hubbard, and they do them as live readings, basically, and they get a group of like voice actors to recreate all of the different characters, and we kind of dub it theater of the mind, because what it does is it asks the audience to supply all of the visuals. In film and television, we're sort of fed those images constantly, and whereas when you're just listening to a story being told, you as an audience have to, create. If it's a Western and they talk about the cavalry pounding across the desert and the dust flying, everybody in the audience has to decide what that looks like. And, L. Ron Hubbard was brilliant at creating these different sorts of genres and images, whether it was Western or space adventure or travel or sci-fi. And so there's this whole, myriad collection of these wonderful stories. And every Saturday night in Hollywood at the Golden Age Theater, they do one of them, and the audience just love them. There's sound effects and there's, some light effects, but mostly the audience just has to listen and create it.
Awesome. Yeah, it seems like nowadays with the way technology is and how fast the world goes, some of that stuff kind of gets forgotten, so it's good to kind of bring it back and keep it in people's minds.
Yeah, and it's quite something that oftentimes, everyone's, in Hollywood, people can be looking for, the next big hit or the next, what's unique, what's different, and yet so often in looking back, you really get a chance to see where things that are happening today really still sprung from things that were created ages ago. People talk about, they'll do variations on Shakespeare stories still. And, some of these great stories, like what L. Ron Hubbard wrote, they stand the test of time. And you find that, a lot of what the stories are being told today, they're maybe not really that different. They just might be set in a different location or a different time period. But, a good story is a good story. And that's what I love about, about working with the Golden Age stories, is they're just classic storytelling. And as a writer myself, I find that, I've gone back and I've looked at different people's writings and what they have to say about writing. And L. Ron Hubbard, I have read when he talked about, writing these pulp fiction pieces and, and how he did his research and how he went about writing them. And, I've used a lot of that when I've been creating stories, and it's very helpful. So not only have I enjoyed being part of it as an actor, on stage, but also have learned in developing my craft in other areas.
Now, this is a bit off subject, but you made a lot of appearances on the Battle of the Network Stars shows in the late 70s
Yeah.
and early 80s.
Right.
What was that like, and do you feel like that kind of prepared you for the theater?
Sports have been a part of my life since I was a kid. Those were my hobbies, were always sports, and I was always very competitive. Mary Ellen was a tomboy, and that was part of my childhood as well. I had a combination of sports and dance. So I guess I was a coordinated jock, or maybe a graceful jock. I don't know. But I found that it was a good combination, and I loved the challenge. So with a lot of these different sporting things that I did, whether it was Circus of the Stars or Battle of the Network Stars, it was the combination of the challenge and the competitive aspect of it that I really enjoyed. So, and it put me into new areas and gave me an opportunity to try new things, and some of which I stayed with and some of which I didn't.
Well, you mentioned your work now at the Golden Age Theater. Is there any other things you're working on or any other projects?
Well, the series up in Canada, which is called Bluff, which is also probably going to start airing. I don't know who's going to be carrying it in North America yet. That's in the works, but that series Bluff. And I'm slated to direct another film in the spring down in Tennessee, a thing called Butterfly. So, lots going on. And if people want to, they're interested and would like to follow what I'm doing, they can check out my website, judynorton.com. If they want to know more about how they can attend the Golden Age Theater production, go to goldenagetheater.com. And, I have a Facebook page, people can interact with me and I try to post what's going on, shoot some pictures up there to show you some of my latest adventures. And always interested to hear from people and, stay in touch with, the folks out there that I have shared my work with me over the years.
All right. Awesome. Sounds good. Well, thanks a lot,
Great.
Judy, for talking with us.
All right. You guys have a good day.
You too.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.